Over the years, one of the biggest draws to the martial arts has been the structure and the discipline, and this idea that there will be a person in the building, this sensei, who has all the answers and knows how to get you where you're trying to go. So now it's time to ask the question, does sensei really know best? Hey, what's up? I'm Ken. This is kenfuTV, and each week release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, I hope that you stick around. I hope you subscribe. I hope you jump in the comments and be part of the conversation that we have every week. And if this has value for you, I hope you share it with somebody who you think should hear it. Some of these videos can be longer than the average attention span, so I've got chapter markers in the description below to jump to the part that you're interested in. Before we jump in, this week's video is a bit of a continuation of last week's video, where we looked at this book by John McClane, Made on the Mats. Really good book. Go watch that video to kind of see more about this book in general and some of the things that we talked about. We also did a shirts and patches segment last week because he sent over some shirts. There was a different shirt last week, and this is his main shirt. This is his rock solid logo. It's got a great traditional vibe with this idea that follows his philosophy, this train, grow, belong thing, where really what he's trying to do is cultivate the people, give people a sense of belonging, a place to be, a place to grow, a place to become strong, to be a sensei of sorts. And it's something that he said in his book that we're going to talk about today. So in his book, on page 50, the chapter on many paths up the same mountain, there's just this line, and it's part of the line, it's one of the lines from what I talked about last week, but it stands out to me so much that I want to talk about it specifically. He says, when you're a student and you're brought up in an environment of conformity and sensei knows best. He goes on, there were other pieces to that, but I just want to stop there, that. In an environment of conformity and sensei knows best. This is something that's been on my mind a lot lately. I do believe there's a place for conformity in the martial arts. I do believe that there's a place, maybe not conformity, maybe I don't, a place for consistency, for the ability to work together and have things that are reliable and consistent that help you have a sense of grounding in what you do. And that helps pass the art along too. That's an important thing. But as he talks about this whole sensei knows best, basically referring to the concept of you just don't question. You don't question it. You're here, you're on the mat, you're training under your instructor, and you don't question what he's saying. And that leaves room for him to be wrong. I believe that under a good instructor, being wrong is natural. It's a thing that can happen. But there are many instructors, some of which know that they're wrong and pass along false information, but they don't want to change, and some of which believe they're right, even if they're wrong. And your inability to question or converse with them about it doesn't exist. So the ability to see something different or even come with new evidence that things have changed. We live in a different time. The martial arts have been tested in many, many different ways. And now we have more information than we've ever had. There's things that are bound to be different now. We're bound to know new things that we've never known before. So if the sensei does not, and I won't say stay up to date, because how do you stay up to date? If the sensei is not seeking to grow themselves continuously, if they're seeking to just perpetuate what they have into future generations, then there's a place where that stagnation can occur and the wrong information, misinformation, can be passed along to more people over time. If you follow the practical karate movement at all, then you know that there is a tradition, a modern tradition, not to be confused with Christian Vedovic's karate Praxis modern tradition. That's a totally different thing. I did a different video on Christian's book where he talks about his modern tradition a little bit. But there's a modern tradition that we have that follows a modern Bunkai and this 3K karate approach, which is what John is talking about in this chapter of the book. But then there's an older tradition, and we are discovering that there were a lot of things that have changed over the years. You know, if you came into it later like I did, you don't necessarily know that some of these things exist. They just always have been this way for you. And if they've always been that way for you, and they've always been that way for your instructor, and always been that way for your instructor's instructor, it will perpetuate, it will always be. But that doesn't mean that it always was, and that doesn't mean that it's always best. There might be things, and I believe that there are things, that are true about the past that change everything. That that straight up deny some of the things that we do now, some of the ways that we practice, some of the things that we believe, some of the things that we follow, just inaccurate. I also believe that we've continued to study with science and sports science and all of these different things. We've been able to study and know more about the human body, fitness, strength, conditioning, speed, power, all of these things. We've been able to develop more information than has ever existed before. We have more than there ever was. And sometimes people want to deny new things that we've discovered about the body because, well, that's not the way they used to do it. And the struggle with that is just because they used to do it that way doesn't mean that they understood this thing we understand now. There are many things done throughout history that we realize are wrong. Look at building codes and things, right? Working with asbestos and lead paint and all this stuff. You wouldn't look at somebody who works in construction saying, well, we've always used lead paint, so I'm going to use lead paint because we've always done it. It's how my daddy did it. It's how his daddy did it. It's how we're going to do it. If you saw somebody do that, you'd be like, no, that's not okay. We're not going to do that. But yet we do that in the martial arts. We look at him and go, oh yeah, you did it. Your instructor did it. His instructor did it. Understood. I will do it too. A lot can be lost in that. A lot of ground that we could cover could be lost and never discovered if we just take everything for what it is all the time. One of the biggest fears that I have as an instructor is to perpetuate false knowledge, to teach something. And there are many things over the course of my time that I have taught that I now don't believe in, or I believe something different about, or I understand differently, or I just believe have maybe a limited use. They have a very specific use, where I used to think they have a very broad use. There are many things that I don't teach the way I used to, or I don't believe the way I used to, and I want that. I want that to exist. I hope to never end up in a place where I just suddenly believe that my art is worthless and I should have gone and done something else. I don't believe I'll ever end up there, because the ability to grow, the ability to recognize things that need to change, to incorporate them and embrace that change, is the thing that makes an art stay alive. And if an art stays alive, there's no part of it that was a waste. So it's important to me to perpetuate new findings. I really like the phrase. A number of people have said it. Ian Abernathy has used it recently. Patrick McCarthy used it. A lot of people quote this, and I like it as well, which is this older saying of, if I can see so far, it is only because I stand on the shoulders of giants. If I can see so far, if I can see what I can see from here, it's only because somebody else did something that is allowing me to see that. I'm here because of somebody else, because of somebody else's work, because of somebody else's effort. And that's the way the martial arts is. We have what we have and we pass what we pass because somebody else helped get it to where it was when we started. And in a way, it's our responsibility and maybe even obligation to continue that, to continue it. At least I believe that it is mine. That's something I believe. And maybe that's the scholastic endeavor to it. The fact that I want to know more, I want to understand more, and I want it to be understood, which means that over time, I will discover things, but then those things will have to be discovered by someone else when I'm long and gone. There will need to be people who continue to discover new things that I was unable to discover through the course of my life. I want that to happen. It's important to me. And sometimes the things that we can see when we're on these shoulders of giants are things that we don't agree with anymore, or we see where somebody got us X far and then they couldn't take us any further than that. And we should always be thankful for the fact that that was possible. I'm very thankful for everyone who has gotten me to where I am now. No matter what has happened through all of time with any of these relationships, with any of these people, with any of the training, with any of the knowledge, good, bad, indifferent, otherwise, throughout all of the years, no matter what, I'm thankful. I'm here where I am, thinking the things that I am, saying the things that I'm saying, sharing the things that I'm sharing because of these people. The feelings that I have are all built around the experiences that I've had, and those are all based on people. So in different parts of my training, there are things that I was taught that I don't agree with anymore. I don't hold that against anyone. It doesn't even mean that my instructor was wrong. It could mean that my perception of what I was given is wrong. And that's okay. But what's important is that we do question for ourselves. So this has become an important thing that I say fairly regularly. Even today, it was said in class, this idea that I want to be able to share with you what I believe the things that I think are important, that maybe the technique or the method or whatever thing that I think about what we're doing is important. I want you to believe that the one that I have put the time and effort into understanding is important. And maybe you'll believe it's best. But I don't ever want you to believe that just because Sensei knows best. That's not it. I want you to believe it because you feel that the reasons that I'm giving, my understanding of it and the way that I'm able to explain it to you makes sense and is valid. But then I want you to take it further than that, because just the idea that somebody passed something that sounds logical to you does not make it true. It just makes it feel good, right? Then we work into a confirmation bias. Well, I want to believe this, and so then I look at the logical things that make it true, and then I believe it because of those things. We have to explore. We have to question. We have to experiment. So today's example is we were working some footwork drills, and I talked about why I do a particular movement in this thing that we were doing the way that I do it. And I showed a couple variations and why I didn't like those variations, or at least how I felt that each variation stepped up into a better way. All right, there's this way, it's okay. There's this way, I think it's better. There's this way, it's better still. And here's the one that I like, and here's why I like it. But it was important to me to commission to them that just because I like this one, and just because I've shown you what I believe are good reasons to believe in this one, does not mean you should just go, okay, got it, best one. Never questioning, moving on. You can't. Try the ones I don't like. Maybe they work better for you. Maybe there's a reason why that is good for you. Maybe there are things about who you are and how you move that make that version best, whereas the one that I do is best for me. And maybe I'm full of crap. Maybe I am believing what I'm believing, but it's just ultimately, it's just not true, and there's information that helps prove that there's just not validity in what I'm saying. I want people to have that freedom. I want people that train with me to be able to go, hey, I've been looking at this, I've been studying this, and I'm struggling with this part here because I feel like this isn't right, or what do you think about this, or have you thought about this part? I want it to be open to have that conversation because I don't have all the answers, because I'm still gathering the answers. I'm still exploring and discovering and learning right alongside every single one who's on the mat with me. And all of you who watch these videos, many of you make your own videos, and I watch your videos, and I take the things I'm discovering off of what you're doing. And that stuff is important. It continues to grow. And so I want to be able to have those conversations. Now, I'm not endorsing someone just goes, I think that's dumb, or what about this? And not having actually put any thought into it or explored it or even tried it. You need to do those things. And in the Shuhari methodology concept, you need to try it my way first. Understand why I teach it the way I teach it, and then see if there's adaptations you need to make to it for you as you come to understand it and make it yours. And then you need to be able to expand even beyond that. That's the kind of that process in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it than that. Try to understand what I expect. This is important. If you're training with someone, you can't come in and just immediately, I'm not telling you to go into them and just immediately don't believe anything they say and be a jerk. Don't do that. That's not it. And especially don't tell them I told you to do that, because that's not what I said. What I mean is you've got to come in with an inquisitive mind, a mind that questions, and you've got to be able to spend time putting effort into understanding the material, understanding what you're given, understanding things about it, understanding things, variations and alternatives, and even things that are contrasting or opposite, and allowing that to either reinforce or destroy your belief in this thing. I believe in most arts, things are taught the way they're taught because at some point it made sense. And I think by and large, the greater whole is accurate and good. And I mean, there can be arts that don't have anything that doesn't fit in, that ultimately will be questioned in a way that gets changed or replaced or thrown out. People are constantly working, and there may be people who are in that place. I'm not. There will be things that I throw out. There will be things that I have to go back to my students and say, I used to believe this, and here's why I believe different now. But you should always question. I talked about in a previous video this idea that you teach you, that you are your teacher, and that I'm not. I say this to my students, that I don't teach you anything, because I don't believe that I do. I expose you to knowledge. I create an environment where you have an informed way to approach understanding something. You have someone, namely me, to help guide you through trying it and at least picking up the things I know about it. But at the end of the day, you have to process all of that before it becomes yours. Just because I said, do this way, or do this when this happens, does not automatically make you capable of doing it. It takes time for you to process it and make it something that you're able to do, that you're coordinated enough to perform, that you have the power and strength or skill or speed, whatever it is that you have. You've got to develop all of that, and you do that. You teach yourself. That's why I love the Invisible Sensei podcast, is because what Twatty's talking about is that you're the Invisible Sensei, that your Invisible Sensei in you is the person who is teaching you what you know, what you already inherently have, or what you're discovering. And I believe in this concept the same way, which is that I am exposing information to the Invisible Sensei, who is taking that and teaching it to you, and that is you teaching it to you. So I haven't given you everything. So I can give you many things, but teach you none of them, because you teach you. So you have to question. You have to question, if for no other reason than just your understanding. What you taught yourself of what you thought I was teaching you might not be what I was trying to teach you. You have to question it, you have to try it, you have to explore it, you have to understand it. And at the end of the day, you're the only person who will understand it how you do. Do it the way you do it, and be able to teach it the way that you teach it. All of those things, all of those steps, those are yours. You're the only you. You're the only you that exists. And so a place that says Sensei knows best. And I don't believe that they just say this. You know, it's a feeling that you have when you're in a place like this, that you don't question. I believe that I can reconcile being in a position where I can have a little bit of that feeling that I know best. I'm here. I know best of the thing that I'm teaching you. Nobody knows what I'm trying to teach you better than I do. And also tell you to question me, and tell you to examine and explore and discover on your own. I can reconcile those two things, because I believe in having the confidence and the skill to pass on this information, and to understand it enough to present it to you in a way that you can digest and understand and learn about, but also be humble enough to learn through my own humility when I'm wrong, or when I see what you're doing and I understand it to be better. And that happens naturally. Sometimes you see somebody do something and you're like, you're not doing what I just showed you, but something I see about what you're doing right there is actually better than what I did. Do that again. Let me see this. Let's learn this together. Or ask questions I don't know the answers to. But there are schools where, when a person's knowledge starts to become questioned, that instead of embracing the change, they lock in harder on the static information, because they don't want to admit to themselves that any part of what they had was invalid, or wasted effort to learn, and because not having the answer is scary, and it takes them out of the position of authority. I'm the authority on this information, and then if I suddenly don't know what I'm talking about, then you won't believe me. You won't believe in me. You won't trust me. I'll have nothing to teach you. I don't believe that's the way that it works. I believe that we feel that way. I believe that we want to protect our position. We want to protect our egos. We want to protect our pride. But I believe that can be done while also embracing change and admitting your failures and stepping up and doing something about them. And that itself can breed trust, can build respect, and can be its own source of pride. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to not know everything. Don't be afraid to have people question what you teach them, because it will make you better. And don't be afraid to question the things that you were taught. Don't be afraid to question the things you're learning. Do it always and do it often, because at the end of the day, you need to believe in it. And you can believe in the person who gave it to you, because they can do it. Because it works for them. You've seen it. That doesn't mean you can do it. So you have to question it, at least for yourself, so that you can build a place where you trust in that knowledge, in that skill, as it applies to you. And you can only do that through exploration. That's what I got. That's what I've been thinking on and stewing on this week, and just recently, and reading that, seeing that line inside of this book just clicked that into place, and I went, ooh, I've got to talk about it. And so I hope that this was thought-provoking for you, and I hope that you hit those comments and you talk to me and you talk to the other people in there, and if we're challenged by this, if this is a difficult thing, that we talk about it, and that we support each other, and that if we struggle with this, then that we know that there are other people going through it, and if we've already gone through this, that we support the people who are going through it now. And if there are other things that are like this that you want to talk about, throw those down there too. Because I think that talking about this stuff, being willing to embrace it, to speak about it, to think about it, and to not feel condemned by it, is how we make the martial arts better. So now let me read one of my favorite comments from last week's video. That's another thing that happens if you leave comments down there is I read them, I talk about them, and I give my own thoughts, and we have a conversation. We'll do that, and then we'll wrap this video up. Okay, one of my favorite comments from this last week's video on John's book is from one of the regulars in the channel, Subhamnan Jaykhandi, and he says in here, he says, focusing on the 1220 mark, where did he go? Wow, John, that's so brave. Talking John McClane, who wrote Made on the Mats. Multiple times I have gone to my instructor to try and improve my dojang, but I've never had the courage to go up and tell him it's time for me to go in another direction. My fear of quitting his place has actually spurred me to confront him because I don't want to go. There were some really great things said in this, and I think the most important one is this idea that I don't want to leave, so I'm going to talk to you. I don't think that gets done as much as it used to, and I think that that's an important step. A lot of times it's just so much easier to leave. I even think about the number of students that try a class, or they're even trained for a while, and then one day they just don't show up anymore. Because it's easier to not talk about it and just to disappear than it is to actually have that conversation. And I think the most honorable thing is to have that conversation. And the thing that leads to the best change, the best positive outcome, and the best relationship growth are those conversations. Having those talks, they're hard talks, but you gotta have them. I'm also excited that you left this comment because it's putting it out there. It's in the world now, it exists, it's in the universe, and there are people in this community who are here to support you. So if you do have to go another direction, if that is what it ends up being, that you're not alone, and you know that you're not alone. But what I actually love about this comment the most is something that I just know, which is that he went on to join John's Facebook group and posted that Facebook group talking about, what do I do? How do I do this? People who have done this, what did you do, and what was this like? There's been a really great conversation that's been happening because of it. And just seeing that step, seeing something go from just something we were talking about in a video to a conversation to an actual discussion in a forum with like-minded people, it's just really awesome to see that, and really powerful for me to see this whole thing take place. Really, really excited, and that is why it was my favorite for this week. I hope that you leave comments on this video so that we can have these conversations next week. In the meantime, let's wrap it up. Okay, that's it. That's what we have this week. Hope you enjoyed this. I hope this had some value for you. If it did, share it with somebody. If you're going through this and you think other people are too, pop it out there. Get other people talking about it. Let's get a conversation started. I only know what I know. And the way that we grow together is by exposing this information to each other and challenging what I'm saying. There are people who might not believe what I say. There might be people who feel strongly against it. And so share this with people. If you believe in it, share it. If you don't believe in it, share it. And let's start a conversation. I'm willing to be wrong. I hope that you are too. I hope that we can just put this out there. If you like these kind of videos, if you like what I'm doing, you can subscribe right here. If you want to see a playlist of these videos, Ken Learns Ken Fu right here. And here's a couple more videos that you might like right here. I'm Ken, this is kenfuTV, and I'll catch you in the next one.